Hey, everybody, welcome back to Healed Whole Called. Today's conversation is for the woman who has always been the strong one, the one who carries the weight and keeps going. But what happens when your body can't keep up with life you've built? When the strength you've relied on is no longer sustainable? I'm joined by Pam Western, a nonprofit executive director, wife, mother, and caregiver who spent over 30 years leading and serving with steadiness and resolve. But her greatest leadership lesson didn't happen in the boardroom, it happened through limitation. After being diagnosed with a chronic fatigue syndrome, Pam was forced into slowing she never would have chosen. And there she discovered a different kind of resilience, not striving, but surrender, not willpower, but wisdom. So if you're quietly exhausted and wondering whether slowing down means losing yourself, it doesn't. And Pam, I'm so grateful you are here with me today.
Hi, Wendy. It's great to be with you. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. And I love that we're going to be talking about essentially surrender and abiding, not striving. That's been my big thing this year is learning how to do that in this culture, in this country. It's the opposite.
It's very challenging. Yeah. We're just doing and going constantly. So actually not doing that is a different mode completely.
Yeah. So before your diagnosis, how did you define strength, especially as a leader and someone others depended on?
Well, I think there's the definition that you know is the truth, and then there's the actual way that you live. And sometimes those two don't match up very well to each other. Because I think, as believers, we know the truth that we're supposed to, not worry, and we're supposed to rely on God, and that, when we're weak, he's strong, all of that. And I mean, to a certain degree, I've definitely lived in that kind of grace my whole life, but our human nature and our flesh battles against that pretty strongly. And a lot of things happened in 2021. My 15-year-old daughter at the time was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And so you immediately, in a day, your life changes and you're having to monitor blood sugar levels, and you're walking on this tightrope all day long between highs and lows. And if you fall off one way, you can go into a coma and die. And if you fall off the other way, you might have long-term side effects from it. And so I didn't sleep, I think, for 3 years. You just, as a mom and as a parent, you just get into that mode where, like, I'm just going to do this. You're just doing what you need to do. And so that's probably a lot of what I think led to me collapsing myself this past October. That's just one example. Another one would be my job as executive director of this nonprofit. It's a smaller nonprofit. I'm the only full-time employee. And so there again, like, whether you like it or not, you're responsible for taking care of all the finances, running all the programs, doing all the fundraising, planning the events, all of that. And it just wears on you. And what happened, I don't know if you wanted me to get to the story of...
I was going to share, the next question is, when did you first begin experiencing symptoms and eventually receive your diagnosis, and what shifted internally for you?
Yeah. So 2024, I had about 6 months where I just felt awful. I kept going to the doctor. I was at urgent care a couple different times, repeated EKGs, numerous blood tests. I saw a neurologist, I saw a cardiologist. And basically everybody just kept telling me that there was nothing wrong with me, because they couldn't, nothing with chronic fatigue will ever really show up on a blood test. And so it's really frustrating, and you feel kind of gaslighted because you don't feel well, but they can't find what's wrong. And then miraculously overnight, I still can't totally compute what happened, but I got better. Like, I went a whole week where I didn't have any symptoms, and my symptoms were pretty pronounced. I was exhausted all the time. I felt like I was walking through mud, like my legs felt heavy, like a lot of POTS-like symptoms, things like that. And then all of a sudden I didn't have any symptoms. And for 12 months, I felt great. And then this past July, on July 4th, we live in a condo that we own, and it's like an 8-plex. So we own this ground level unit. It's all one floor. and the people above us were at work and we were out of town, and their pressure tank on their hot water heater blew a hole in it. And very quickly, there was just so much extensive water damage. Our neighbors noticed water pouring off of their upstairs patio and called us, and we were 2 hours away.
Oh my gosh.
So anyways, needless to say, our entire home was underwater. And so we had like a week. We had to move everything out to start the restoration process. And then a week after that, we went on a lovely vacation that my mother-in-law took us all on. It was an overseas trip. But all of that combined in 1 month, plus it being the time of year where we were amping up for our annual fundraiser at the foundation, just kind of did me in, and I started having symptoms again.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so by October, I was in the emergency room. I came home from work and I was so dizzy, I didn't think I could make it to the bathroom. So I had my husband take me to the ER, CAT scan, MRI. After a bag of fluids, I felt fine, which was so embarrassing because I thought I was hydrated. I'd been drinking, fluids all day, but I wasn't hydrated enough, I guess. But that is one of the things that happens with chronic fatigue. It kind of throws off your electrolyte balance a lot. So in my follow-up appointment from that ER visit was when my doctor first brought up the technical term for it is ME/CFS, and I can't pronounce the ME part, but it's the technical term for chronic fatigue syndrome. And the symptoms are, if you've had symptoms for 6 months or longer, post-exertional malaise. So I would tell her, all I'm doing is taking the garbage out and I feel exhausted. So when she brought that up to me, I started doing my own research, and I realized that I was really headed for a crash. And there was some really helpful things online that I would like, resources I was able to access that sort of walked me through what that meant. But basically what it meant was I had to just lay horizontal for a period of days until that feeling kind of went away. Not that I recovered after that, but I did spend 9 days in bed. And once I decided I needed to do that, my body just was done. Like, I couldn't do anything during those 9 days. I couldn't watch TV. I couldn't look at my phone. I was able to stay hydrated and fed. And other than that, I was pretty much horizontal that whole time.
So I don't know if you remember the episode of Golden Girls where Dorothy ends up being diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome. And it was a big episode.
I'd have to go back and watch it.
Yeah, I can't remember which season it is. I could Google it real quick. But so she wasn't feeling good. They thought something was wrong. They went to all these specialists. At one point, her and Sophia go to New York City to see a specialist. And she was dismissed. And then if I'm remembering it all right, I need to go back and watch the episode again. But again, finally she meets this, he happened to be an Asian doctor. And of course, Sophia, in her regular little funky way, says things that are, typically racist, but he took it with a grain of salt. And he's like, look, he goes, I get it. He goes, but what you have is what is called chronic fatigue syndrome. And she's like, what? Why didn't anybody else say anything? He goes, well, it's relatively new. So what I'm bringing that up for is here we are 35 to 40 years later, and we know nothing more. Mm-hmm. That's why it's a syndrome, right? Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it would be called a thing. I just found it interesting. But what's beautiful about your experience is that you were essentially learning data specifically for yourself on what you needed to do to keep your body from being triggered into the fatigue syndrome.
Yeah, well, I mean, I definitely have chronic fatigue syndrome, but when I crashed and took that time and took that 9 days, in some ways, I really feel like I stood on the precipice of despair. Like, I was at the edge and I was looking over that edge and I did not like what was down there.
No.
You're thinking, is this my life now? You hear stories about people diagnosed with chronic fatigue that literally, some people really can't even get out of bed. Mm-hmm. And I'm financial supporter for my family. I'm like, this is not going to work. This doesn't work. But I joined a Facebook group and it wasn't helpful. Just because they didn't allow discussion in the group about recovery at all. So I got out of the Facebook group and I started searching for recovery stories, and I have found a lot of hope and help and healing on that journey. So that's where it's just pivoted literally everything in my life, Wendy. Like, I will never, ever be the same again. But the primary thing that I learned that brings us together today is that chronic fatigue syndrome, and there is medical research now being done to support this, is it's often it is triggered by a virus. Like, you get sick, it's the same as long COVID. But why you can't get better is because your nervous system is in such a state of fight or flight that your brain is trying to protect your body. So your brain, and the symptoms are real. Nobody's making this up. It's not in your head. People with CFS get accused of that all the time. Like, this is all in your head. And that's not the case. It's just that it's neuroplastic is what I've learned. But the good news, the exciting part of that, is that the brain is neuroplastic, and that stays true until the day you die. Like, it doesn't matter how old you are, you can retrain your brain. And so
there's been a lot of stuff coming out about neuroplasticity. And so it's really interesting. And the episode for Golden Girls is season 5 called Sick and Tired.
I'm going to look that up.
Hulu. But it's just so well done. And, with the entire, but being, I guess when going back to the trigger, because your body is in fight or flight. Okay. So yours was triggered because of your daughter's type 1 crisis for several years till you stabilize that. And then all of a sudden you had all this thing happen with the house and stuff. Not that we can control when things happen to our families, but now people who may be going through this can say, hey, maybe make sure we step back a little bit, have a little extra self-care when things are crazy instead of pushing ourselves, which could create additional fatigue. I don't think it's probably called a flare-up. What do you call it?
I guess you could use that term. I mean, I didn't have any symptoms for 12 months, and I did, aside from the flood and all of that stress, I did come home from our trip with a virus. I felt great all through the trip, and it was after we returned that I started feeling sick, and I went to the doctor, and they discovered a little heart murmur, which was new. That had never been on my chart before. So when I started not feeling well the next couple of months, I kept thinking, oh, it's this heart murmur. They need to get this figured out. Well, it didn't have anything to do with the heart murmur.
Yeah.
But it's the pushing. It's just like you said, it's the pushing. And we are not created to push ourselves like that. And our body literally isn't built to do it.
No, and listening is so important. Like, there's times where, my family's been through some stuff this year where we've had the death of my niece, and there was right after it, I told my mom, like, I'm so tired. She goes, it's part of the grief process. So I really would just say, okay, Lord, I'm going to go take a nap. You run the business while I'm taking a nap, because I literally have no energy to give. And so by doing that, he took care of the business just fine. I know that sounds weird to anyone who doesn't understand our Creator, but nothing burned down in my business while I took a nap and took care of my body. And I don't need long naps. It wasn't like it was for days. It was for a couple hours.
Right.
Right. It's listening to the body and doing it's like, okay, Pam, like, okay, this is a stressful moment. Go outside and breathe. And, or as the kids say these days, go touch grass. I'm mortified that I just use that on social media.
Or something like that. Yeah.
That.
Right.
But what would you say is the most unexpected emotional challenge in adjusting to the new pace of life?
It's hard when you have a lot of goals and ambitions and things you want to do, and you just can't. Like, your body just says, no, you're not going to be able to do that. Overall, though, like, in terms of focusing on my healing and recovery, and a few things that I've found really important are, setting boundaries. So that's been not a new thing for me, but my tendency has always been to want to take on more than I'm capable of doing. I want to take care of everybody, do all the things. check off all the boxes. And so letting go of some things, one really big example of that, and anyone who is a parent or has type 1 diabetes can understand this. People with type 1 often nowadays wear a glucose monitor, which is a gift and a curse all at the same time. So I have my daughter's blood sugar on my phone 24/7 and alarms going off day and night. And so she's 20 years old now. She lives on her own. And when I got really sick in October, I just knew it was time, and I knew she was okay. But that was like a really hard thing for me to do, just to turn off those alarms at night. I still follow it, it's still there, but I can't have those alarms at night just because of where I'm at right now. Someday that might change. But, so things like that, just setting limits and realizing what are my limitations? What am I able to do right now? What can't I do? And then focusing on joy and things that give me joy, and things that, just getting off the screens more, getting outside more, thinking about, what am I really here to do? That's been a big part of this process for me too. And I think, a lot of things are shifting in my life because of this, and in a really positive way. So even though it's been really hard to go through it, and I wouldn't wish it on anybody, I'm so grateful that this has happened to me, because it's completely reshaping who I am.
That's so cool. Yeah. So when you look back on this journey now, can you see how your story holds meaning beyond just your own experience?
Absolutely. I really feel like it's forming a message in me. I'm still working on what that is, but I do want to write a book. I want to talk to leaders about what I'm calling the paradox of resilience. Resilience can mean a lot of different things. And I think in its purest form, I do appreciate the definition of resilience, but I think in my mind, I had it kind of twisted or a little bit backwards, where I was pushing and doing, no pain, no gain. And the paradox of that is that the actual strength, I think, sometimes comes from letting go and trusting God. He said, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And it's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that part. I can't do this. I can't be God. I have to let him be him. He's God, I'm me. And I need to separate those two things out and not carry more than I was meant to carry.
Well, and the thing is that we weren't meant to carry any of it.
Yeah.
And so the more that I'm learning to let go of all of it, everything falls into place, and I'm blessed with more. And so it sounds completely opposite, because we're told to strive, right? I actually just saw the meme about I want to be a business owner so I can work the 128 hours a week whenever I want. That's stupid. No one should be working 128 hours. I learned during COVID that I can do the same amount of work in my business between the hours of 9 and 3 as I do that if I work from 7 to 9 p.m., 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Why? Because I'm using the most amount of my time, maximizing my effort. So when I tell people at 3, I'm done to go to get my kids, I start doing mom mode. It doesn't mean I won't ever answer a text message, because I do have that customer service mentality of answering back right away, when I should probably just turn my phone off and wait till tomorrow. But I'm still learning how to do that, right? But there is ways to be successful without working 128 hours a week. And are you realizing that as well, that as a, founder, business owner, all the things that you are, that you can do the same amount of productivity in less amount of time in comparison to what you were doing before?
I do agree with that. Yeah. I mean, and I feel like that's a lesson I've learned over and over again since I've been here. A large part of my job is fundraising. If we don't raise money, we don't raise our budget, we can't help the clients that we serve. And we'll be working on a fundraiser and, making all these plans. And then some donor will call out of the blue that I haven't even contacted. And there will come, there comes the funds that we need. So I feel like it is just a perpetual lesson that I'm learning that we do have to, obviously we have to show up and we're responsible. And, and it's a joy, hopefully our work is a joy to get to do it. But at the end of the day, it's up to God how it's all going to work out.
And so one more final question for the woman listening who feels like she just can't be who she used to be and doesn't know yet who she's becoming. What would you want her to hold on to today?
I think that's a really good question. So in terms of identity, I mean, where does our identity come from? Really, truly, if it's tied to our productivity or what other people say about us or any of that, it's really going to fall short. So, knowing your identity, if you are a believer, I think that's a big piece of it. Obviously, that's, knowing that we were created with a purpose and that is really who we are is huge. And I think also knowing that we don't have to work to please other people. I think that was another really big piece of this for me, is literally self-imposed expectations. So they weren't even real. Like my board is very favorable of me and I have good reviews at work and all that. But needless to say, like I still will try to perform for the board. And so that's another thing that's been a big thing where I've been able to really let that go. And just like, I'm doing my job. I have integrity. Like I can't put my head down on my pillow at night if I know that I've slept off things or that I'm not, doing what I'm supposed to be doing, but it's in a healthier balance where I'm not trying to win the approval of other people constantly, because that's exhausting.
Yeah. Well, and it's so important to know that we don't owe anybody anything. We owe our Creator and our Savior integrity and doing the best that we can with the situation and showing up. If we say we're going to do something, which is integrity, do it. You need to say, hey, by the way, don't feel good today. Can you give me till tomorrow? Just ask for it.
Yeah.
Unless something's going to crash down, most of the time the answer is going to be, yeah, no big deal. It's fine. Right?
Yeah.
So amazing. Well, this has been so wonderful. I'm so glad that you joined us today. And for everyone, for the woman who feels like she can't, I already asked the question. Dude, man, this is why humanism's so fun. Gotta love it. I have it in the wrong spot. If this conversation resonated with you, I would want you to sit with it. And remember, strength is not disappearing. It's made just simply being refined. And for your limitation is not your disqualification, and it may be the very place where God is reshaping your calling. Thank you for joining us today with this episode. And if it spoke to you, be sure to share it with that woman who's been carrying more than she lets on. And as always, remember, healing is possible, holding is your inheritance, and you are still called. Till next time.